Would getting rid of all guns make our country safer? That is a question often posed by anti-Second Amendment people to pro-Second Amendment people as kind of a gotcha. The implications of that question are, well, will you at least admit that your quote-unquote freedoms to bear arms are resulting in people dying? And a lot of the pro-Second Amendment people, they're not kind of with it. What they usually say was more guns equals less gun deaths. And look, just from a pure intuition level, that doesn't really make any sense, because if there were no guns, there'd be no gun violence. Now, their argument is, well, if we get rid of guns from law-abiding citizens, then there will be bad people with guns and they'll do more killing. And let's be honest, more guns directionally means more gun violence. I think that's pretty obvious. But I'm going to make a counter argument as someone who does support the Second Amendment on why more guns means less overall violence. Because I don't think you can make a serious argument that more guns means less gun violence. But violence doesn't just come from guns. You know, we have knives, we have hammers, we have our bodies, which is where most, violence comes from, is people punching, people kicking, people elbowing, people biting. That's where most violence comes from, is because most people, well, everyone has access to those weapons, your fists, your elbows at all times. And maybe it's a stretch argument, maybe it's not, but my personal opinion, and this is kind of how I feel about nuclear weapons and nuclear proliferation across the world. A lot of people say, well, we don't want Iran to get a nuclear weapon and a nuclear arsenal because they're going to be more dangerous. And I kind of view countries having nukes as a defensive mechanism. It's going to sound crazy, but I think having nukes makes the world safer, because a nuclear country has never been attacked. Never. No one has offensively attacked a nuclear country. The one exception, the only country that's ever had a nuke that has been attacked, since they've gotten nukes. Now, countries have been attacked and then got nukes after, but what I mean by that is Ukraine had nukes and was forced to give them up. And look, 20, 30 years later, now Russia is attacking them. Would Russia have attacked Ukraine? Would Russia have gone offensively into Ukraine if Ukraine had nukes? Probably not. Same thing with North Korea. The United States doesn't like North Korea for whatever reason. I'm not going to get into the specifics on it, but North Korea having nukes is why the United States is kind of deterred from that. So I think, it's kind of a weird argument, because we're saying that because people are more capable of violence, that there is less overall violence in society. But I don't think that's a far stretch to make, because it's kind of an equalizer. If we didn't have guns, the people that would be able to apply force, and at the end of the day, force is what matters the most. Those are the people that run society. But because everyone has access to guns, we've got cops, we've got military, half the country has guns, we've got more guns than people, the force is equalized. So we don't really have a pure hierarchy. Before there were guns, we had a few people, the biggest, the baddest, mafia bosses, super jacked, grizzled dudes, and people were fighting physically because there was more of a curve. We had you had older people, you had kids, you had women, you just weaker men. And then you had the strongest men controlling society, because if you control force, you control everything. Now there's definitely more of an equal playing field. So that's the deterrent. If somebody has a gun, you're not going to go fight them because they have a gun. And if everybody has a gun, then it makes everybody second guess. Okay, should I really break into this home if they have a gun? So that's kind of the claim that I think the pro-Second Amendment people should go with, is it's a deterrent. And there are going to be gun deaths, obviously. No one's saying that there aren't going to be gun deaths. And no one's, same thing with nukes. Obviously the United States has used nukes. So nobody's making the argument that they never have a downside, because they do have a downside. But I'm saying overall, in the grand scheme of things, I don't think it's unreasonable to say that people having access to kind of a mechanical advantage when it comes to force is repelling other people from enacting their force. Because now, in our current society, if you have a gun, you're pretty much on the same playing field. Now, if you don't have training, maybe somebody with a gun can beat somebody else with a gun. But if you have a gun, a woman now can go from having no capability to imply force to having a capability to defend herself. So I don't think it's a stretch argument at all. Same thing with nukes. I think countries having nukes is probably safer as a whole to the world than not having.